Hi everyone, Editing Justin here. I just wanted to let you know that Matt and I filmed this before the D&D 1 announcement and the UA playtest that came out with it. So what we have to say in this video is still relevant, but there are some things that we will say that seem to be going against the direction that the D&D 1 playtest is suggesting it's going. So before you comment and say, well, that's not what the rules say, blah, 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 just know that we filmed this before any official rule set came out for playtest. So, enjoy!
You mean all of these 5th edition books I have are no longer going to be useful in a couple of years?
Obsolete, son. Get used to it. Hi guys, I'm Matt.
I'm Justin.
Welcome to Game On, the channel that's all about tabletop gaming, from role-playing games to board games and everything in between.
Today we got ourselves a viewer request.
Oh.
Pretty fun, right?
Okay. Do we want to give credit to the viewer?
I forget who it was.
Oh no.
Might have been Quinian on Discord.
Oh. And if it wasn't, we'll correct that in the notes below.
Yeah, probably.
Okay.
So, fun fact, this is one of our last few videos shot here.
Yes, this is true. We are relocating to yet a new studio that will hopefully be even cooler than this one.
Both literally and figuratively.
But before we're done with this, we're going to talk about something that's looming on the horizon that's maybe of slightly larger import than us moving to a new location.
I don't know.
You don't? Well, then let me tell you.
Okay.
It's going to be more important. Or at least it's going to be important to more people.
Oh, there you go.
6th edition, guys.
Yeah, I mean, that's what we're kind of calling it. You know,
yeah, who knows, right?
What's going to be called?
D&D next.
D&D next. Fun fact, you and I met for the 5th edition playtest.
Yes.
If it wasn't for the 5th edition playtest, you and I wouldn't have met.
Well, I don't know about that. We might have run into each other somewhere else.
We would have met later, probably.
Yeah, you would have been like in front of me in traffic, and I would have been giving you rude gestures.
Yeah. Okay. You do that anyway. Not only that, but we also play tested a lot of 5th edition material as it was coming through.
Yeah, I mean, we've got our names in the front of a couple of books.
Wow.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
I gotta say. In my professional career, I have a lot of bylines from a lot of magazine articles. But being in a gaming book, there's just something better about that.
Yeah.
So, anyway, what we're here to talk about is not 1st edition. It's not 5th edition. It's 1 + 5 = 6th edition, or whatever they decide to call it.
Yeah. And we were asked what we would like to see, kind of what we want to see different in this new edition or new updated.
Yeah, like if we were calling the shots, what would we make the next version of D&D into?
Yeah.
To sort of. Okay.
Yeah.
You want to start?
Sure. Mine is pretty simple. For the most part, for the edition, it's not terrible.
Damning with faint praise. That's what we call that, folks.
No, I mean I like 5th edition. It's the edition that we play now.
It's slick. It flows for the most part.
Yeah.
I mean, it's got some things that are better than previous, and some good ideas, or at least some good goals they were shooting for that they mostly attained.
Yeah. I would say I have one DM facing problem and one player facing problem I'd like addressed. The biggest thing for a DM is, I was explaining to you this earlier, is that I cut my teeth in 3.x for my DMing, and what was so crazy about 3rd edition 3.5 was that there was so much going on with books. You have books and books and books. You could have a whole bookshelf dedicated to just 3.x.
And many stores did, and many gamers who were able to afford it went ahead and bought everything.
I'm sad that I don't have all of those books anymore. But what was interesting about that is that kind of later, well, depending on one of the 55 Dungeon Master guides that you had, there was some advice that said, hey, we have so many rules that if you need to make rulings at the table, make some rulings at the table. keep the flow going, because if you have to stop and look up,
Find something,
Yeah.
you're never gonna.
that's kind of rough. But a lot of players didn't necessarily like the idea of like the DM fiat on what they say goes. So then there was 4th edition, which overcorrected.
Yeah.
Which was, we will give a rule for everything.
Yeah.
We'll simplify the rules, but the rules will always have a ruling in the book.
Yeah, I mean, it was the rules lawyer's dream. It was the game, the players at the table running the show, and whoever memorized the most pages wins.
The DM wasn't really a DM in that situation.
No, you didn't actually need one?
Yeah, you felt like you didn't need one. It was, but then we got 5th edition, which is like almost a combination of the two, where we had the simplified rules, but the DMG is consistently telling you to make rulings on it, not rules.
To an extreme, I would argue, right? Like, there was too much punting on the rules and just saying, oh, we're going to put a page or a chapter in this book, and there's not going to be content in that chapter. It's just going to be saying, we want you to make it up.
Yeah, make it up. Talk with your players. Come to the conclusion yourself.
Which is a fine sentiment, but you don't need to print a $60 book that says that.
Yeah, I know that 3rd edition was a really hard edition to start learning to be a DM in. I don't know how I would have learned to be a DM in 5th edition, just because I don't know if I would have been confident to make rulings.
The lack of structure.
Yeah, if I didn't come with some force to bear already from running games before.
Okay.
5th edition would have been a little bit difficult.
Possibly. Or it would have emphasized your improvisation skills.
Fair enough.
Because there is so little structure to it that it would have forced you to be creative and wing it.
That's a
right?
good point. That's a good point.
So I mean, it would be harder to get started, but if you were able to do it, you'd probably have been a better DM faster.
Okay.
Because you had to do so much improv.
Yeah.
Now, what you're talking about there, was particularly with the 3rd edition 3.5, where there was myriad books, resources, rules, this and that, but they were spread to the 4 winds, and finding what you needed when you needed it was hard. So that speaks to one of my wish list items for the next version of D&D, which is, coming from an editorial background, please use common sense in laying out the books. You should not have to flip back and forth through a book 71 times to create a character, right? Character creation rules should be in one section of the book. It should be linear. You should start at the beginning, go to the middle, finish at the end of the player generation section, and not have to look in the back, not have to look in the index, not have to flip back and forth hunting for things. I mean, my player's handbook has so many little post-it tabs sticking out of the top of it just to help people find how to create a character.
Yeah.
That's manifestly unnecessary. And honestly, the number of typos and like basic level screw ups in these books suggests to me that they de-emphasized basic editing and organizational skills. So one of the things I want to see with the next version is hire experienced copy editors, hire experienced people who know how to put together a publication, know how to put together a book in an organized fashion. That has nothing to do with the creative content of it. I mean, obviously you want to have good writers and you want to come up with clever stuff and you want to add to the equation creatively and inspire your players to do cool stuff.
Yeah.
That is completely separate. You can have great content, but also have it be nicely structured.
I would really like to see the rules in with the player's handbook. And I understand that there might be some Dungeon Master secrets that you want in a separate DMG.
Sure.
But I really like the idea of, if there is somebody who is creating a sorcerer, have one page where they teach you how to create a sorcerer and all their stuff, And then on the other side of the page, it says DMs. This is what it's like to have...
Or at the end of that chapter or whatever.
Something
but,
like that.
But in the same section.
Yeah, so give the DMs something to work with here. So they know how to better incorporate it into their
how to deal with
games.
that character.
How to deal with that character. This is what will happen during a wild magic surge. You know, this is what it's like when a sorcerer doesn't want to cast with a wand.
Well, I would suggest that what you're talking about is sort of reunifying the both aspects of the rules into one publication, right?
Yeah.
Well, so that speaks to an editorial decision that they made along the way where they stopped with one unified rule book and they split it into a player's guide and a DM's guide, right? And like I'm sure there was business decisions that went into that in terms of getting people to buy 2 books instead of 1.
Yeah.
But there may also have been some good creative reasons for doing that. But I would say that most games give you a master core rule book, which has player stuff and DM stuff in the same between the same 2 covers.
Yeah.
And that's what you're looking for, is to get back to that structure.
Exactly. I mean, Pathfinder 2e, the big competitive 5th edition, does that. You know, why can't we have that from Wizards of the Coast?
Characteristic of the game, I would say, is a problem. Not everybody agrees with me, but it's certainly a defining characteristic of the D&D level structure, that the power levels, the damage levels, the number of hit points you have to have climb at such an absurd rate that there really is no scaling in the game, right? You can't run a game with experienced players and beginners in it because they are completely incompatible with one another, which is a unique thing with D&D. I think it's more true of D&D than almost any other game that I know of. You simply cannot swim in the deep end of the pool if you're a beginner character.
Oh, okay, so you're talking about beginner characters like a level 1 playing with level 6s.
Yeah, or any disparity whatsoever, because the power levels climb to... I mean, you literally, after you've been playing a couple of months, a few months, your character has 10 times the hit points of your starting character.
Yeah.
Now, there is no reasonable way you could justify or explain that, right? From a realism standpoint.
Exactly.
Right? And what does that do? But you can't unbalance the game. You can't make a character be 10 times as tough as he was when he started without also making all of the villains and monsters and everything else also 10 times as tough, so that you retain the competitiveness and the balance of the game, because otherwise the drama goes away, right? If you're 10 times as strong but the bad guys haven't gotten stronger, you squash them like bugs, and then there's no fun in the game.
And the higher you go, the more bag of hit points you have, the longer the combat to go.
It just makes the math harder. It doesn't change the drama of the game. It doesn't make it more fun. It just makes the pile of dice and the math that you have to do harder. It does give this sort of feedback to the players to make them feel like they're accomplishing something, right?
Yeah.
Because the piles of numbers on your page get bigger. But they're sort of meaningless at that point, those numbers. So what I would like to see, getting back to the sort of theme of what we're talking about, I would like to see a flattening of that power incremental increase.
Okay.
Give people new tools, new facets of their character. I'm still cool with new feats or new abilities as you level up. In fact, I would like to see those show up more frequently.
Okay.
But not power increasing things, more like depth and diversity increasing things.
Okay.
Give them interesting new facets of their characters. Don't just give them a treasure chest full of points that they're like, oh, well, now you do 83 d6 damage when you swing a sword.
Let's make the new edition of D&D the first edition some people play, but definitely not the last.
Well, or maybe what to shoot for is the next edition will be the one they play for the longest because it holds up.
Yeah.
It doesn't need to be patched with a 7th edition, or at least not right away.
And you know what? I mean, 8th edition, 5th edition's been out for like, how long? 8 years now? So it's been doing pretty well for itself.
Well, I mean, as D&D editions go, that's
Yeah.
true. But if we're looking at like other game systems, 8 years is not that long. You know, some games hold up for 20 years.
Yeah.
So, again, I think it's all relative, and the standards for D&D must have to be a little bit different because of the role it plays in the role-playing world. But I think you can make it fundamentally, foundationally sturdier and more useful, and it will have more legs.
I like it. So let us know in the comments what you guys would like to see out of the new updated version of Dungeons & Dragons.
Give us your wish list. I mean, we've rattled on about what you want to see, but yeah, let us know. What did we not think of that we should have? What is your experience with D&D that you would like to see improved with a new edition?
Yeah. Thank you guys very much for watching. My name is Justin.
I'm Matt. Thanks again as always, guys. Tune in next time, and remember,
Game on.